Let's go. All right, so Rocco, when we're doing this, we want to what? We want to find the perpendicular, right? That goes through the 2 points that we graphed right here. So this perpendicular line that goes through the 2 points at a specific point, right? The midpoint, right? So a perpendicular line that goes through the midpoint that we found to be 4, -4. And we want to use the perpendicular line's y-intercept, right? So we have to take this, find the slope, find the perpendicular slope, then use that perpendicular slope to find the new line, the perpendicular line, so we can find the y-intercept of that perpendicular line. Does that make sense? Good? All right, let's do it. So, to find the slope, we need to do what? Find the difference between the y, right, and the x. That's what slope is, right? So, what is the difference between the y's? Again, I like to keep the y's on top, and the x's. So, -5 minus 3 would be -5 plus 3, which would be -2, right? 2 minus 6 would be -4. And again, I know it says to go y sub 2 minus y sub 1, but again, we can go either direction as long as we go the same direction both times. So, we went this direction both times, so we're good to go. We said -2 over -4, which equals 1 over 2, which is your slope, right? So, my perpendicular slope would be flipped and smacked, right? Or opposite inverse, right? So, if it's positive, it's going to be negative. If the 2's on the bottom, the 2's on the top. If the 1's on the top, the 1's on the bottom. Okay? And it doesn't matter if it, whatever it is, 7 over 10, then it's 10 over 7 negative. Right? So if it's -12 over 15, right, then it's positive 15 over 12. It's just opposite inverse. Everybody got that? So m perpendicular equals 1 over m, right? And the opposite inverse of it. Okay? So, all right, so we have our new slope. What's our point we're going to use, though? Do we use one of these points or this point? And why? So we want this perpendicular to go through the midpoint, which means I have to use the midpoint. And that's why. Okay? We have to use that midpoint because it's asking us to use the midpoint, right? All right, so I know what point we're using. 4, -4. Because it's the midpoint. Right? What's the goddess equation that lets us solve all linear equations?
Y equals mx plus b.
That's it. I don't care what teacher you have. Y equals mx plus b solves all linear equations, right? Well, except for one, but we won't go into that right now. Okay. So, now I just substitute in, right? So I substitute in my x and my y. So my -4 equals my slope, which is -2 over 1, times my x, which is 4, plus b. Right? And so now I have -4 equals -8 plus b. Right? And I add 8, and I add 8, and I get 4 is equal to b. And if you have your y, and if you have your m, and you have your b, and this is the b perpendicular, right? So now we can create our perpendicular line. And our perpendicular line, or what I like to call y perpendicular, is equal to what?
Y equals -2x
M perpendicular times X perpendicular plus B perpendicular, right? And so just Y perpendicular equals X perpendicular, and throw in your M perpendicular, which is
Negative 2 over
-2 or -2/1, right? And your B
4.
plus 4. And that's your new line. But the most important thing we needed was the y-intercept. Why did we want this y-intercept? What was so important about this?
Oh, we need it?
To use it to create what?
Isosceles triangle.
That's right, the isosceles triangle. So now, where is that? So now we are forming this beautiful triangle, slowly but surely, right? Okay, this isosceles triangle, meaning that these two sides are the same and these two angles are the same, right? All right. Then what? Well, that comes our next problem, okay? So that's number 7, right? Or maybe number 3 or whatever. The next question to the question. Are we all good here? Any questions on this? So, find a point off of the line that goes through, that uses a perpendicular line that goes through the midpoint, and use that perpendicular line, y-intercept, to create your isosceles triangle. Everybody got an idea of that now? We're good? Questions? All right, cool.